Welcome to Culture and Code Podcast. I'm your host, Rayfield Johnson Jr.
I'm your co-host, Nina Aurora Rowland.
Awesome. Now that we have the intros in place, um, yeah, let's start off this conversation. One of the things I wanted to do ahead of time is let you know that this is going to be a free-flowing conversation. This is one of those where Nina and I are going to go back and forth about our opinion on a subject. So you will see more of these going forward.
We gonna freestyle it today.
Exactly, exactly. The need to freestyle is a benefit for us to actually say what's on our mind. So I think it's important for us to do that.
Yeah.
Before we get started, how's your weekend going, Nina?
So far so good. Got a lot done. We got kids coming home to visit this week at different times for the birthdays in the family. So just reorganizing some stuff, making space, getting rid of clutter. It feels like every 3 months this is an exercise. So I'm doing that, running errands. How about you?
Cutting the grass. Short and
Cutting
sweet.
grass.
Cutting the grass.
Yeah. And Sunday's a great day to do that.
Exactly, exactly. So Nina, I'll let you kick it off. This is our first free
Yeah.
flow freestyle. What do you think we should focus on?
Well, how many times have you been in a room on a call, in a group setting, and someone's doing the talking, and you see eye rolls, yawns, confused looks, um, disengagement, and the person just keeps talking like they're reading from a script?
Yeah, yeah. That's never happened to me.
I'm sure it has not. But we've actually mentioned this on a couple of episodes earlier on, but the importance of reading the room is such a valuable skill, especially nowadays, right? As we're especially when we switch to mostly remote also, I think it's something that it's a skill that's kind of gotten soft,
Mhm.
right? And hasn't been front and center as much. Um, what are some examples that you've seen, like maybe over the course of your career,
I
Rafe?
think, yeah, in Rayfield, that's me. I think the biggest one is over dependence on slideware,
Oh man. Oh
and
yeah.
this happens. I know you were saying the virtual meetings, but it happens even in person. Like when
Mhm.
you're doing presentations, if you're constantly looking over your shoulder or just like reading the words on a slide, um, if you glance back over, you're probably going to see someone who is not focused on your presentation. And what happens is because what I've seen is if you're looking backwards, they're like, this is an opportunity for me to look at my phone.
Yeah.
And you miss the whole purpose of engaging with people in person, right?
Yeah.
Uh, but it is a skill you have to develop, right? You have to be able to not just read the room, but also be able to say, okay, hey, I can talk to these people. They're not scary.
Yeah.
It's important, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's a self-awareness skill that is it underpins this ability to read the room. They're two distinctly different skills that go hand in hand and complement each other very well. There was I mean, God, I can't tell you how many times I've been doing a presentation. We've got like 50 million slides in the deck. And you come to the realization very quickly, and it's a lot easier when you're in person because you can see the facial expressions, you can read body language, and all those nonverbal cues, you can actually see it. But um, I come to the realization really quickly. I'm like, okay, we're skipping ahead. And you know what? Make that a part of your presentation flow, right? Read the room, acknowledge what it is they probably are waiting for, and get there before you lose them completely.
Exactly. It's worst thing you can do is lose them.
Yeah.
It's hard to get them back, to your point.
Oh, absolutely. There was I was at dinner a few weeks back, And this was a personal dinner, totally non-work related. And there was a bunch of us, and one person kind of cornered me into talking about what they wanted to talk about specifically
Hmm.
that was completely unrelated to the general topic that was being discussed at the table, and created this silo which separated us from the group. And it was very, very uncomfortable. And what made it worse is I even said, no, I don't want to talk about this right now. I forget what it was, something, some business related topic that was, some current news type thing. I really was not in the headspace to talk about something technical. I didn't care in that moment. And this person just would not read my very explicit cues.
Hmm.
But then I gave them 2 minutes because it was clear this was not gonna not happen. But then I'm watching everyone's faces and they're just kind of like, what's what's going on? Like there's
Hmm.
we're all here type thing. So, it's really I think even in personal situations, it's not just reserved for, the meeting room or the conference calls. This applies everywhere in life. You got to read the room.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. What are ways that you think that someone who is not cognizant of what's going on can train themselves to better learn and read the room?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure because I think it comes from, receiving feedback because you don't know what you don't know until someone tells you.
Hmm.
And then just it's an exercise of forcing yourself to be more aware of your surroundings
Hmm.
and paying attention to those nonverbal cues. I really recommend anyone who's going to be, in a situation where they're going to be addressing a group, um, to take classes on communications. There's plenty of courses out there that are free on communication styles, working a room, doing presentations. I know at work we've, done some homegrown programs like that on our team, but practicing, it's important to practice
Yeah.
presentation skills for sure, right? But practice in a group. So have a group of your friends or peers that you're comfortable with and feel safe with and running through it, and give them the instruction to use nonverbal communication during the presentation to see if you can pick it up.
Yeah. Do you think it helps or hinders when you're doing conversations like that, like more presentation type conversations? Does it help or hinder to be your authentic self? And I want to not again, this is not year one Nina.
Yeah,
I want our current Nina to say, hey, these are lessons learned I have, right?
yeah.
Do you think it helps or hinder to be your authentic self?
Well, let's focus on the definition of authentic self, right? It's not we none of us have just one version of ourselves.
Right.
We don't, right? Let's talk about kids. They have the version they show to their parents and they have the nice version that everyone else gets.
Hmm.
Right? So we context switch from the time we're born pretty much. And that doesn't make it inauthentic. It is authentic. We have multiple versions of our authentic selves.
Hmm.
So I really do think it's important to understand which version of yourself is appropriate for the setting and show up as authentically as possible in that version.
Yeah.
Um, right? Because I'm like you and I talk crap all day long. I'm not necessarily going to go in a boardroom like that with that persona.
Yeah.
Probably even wear something different. I'm not going to wear jeans, like, you know what I'm saying? So we do it naturally. And it doesn't mean that version that's more polished or whatever is less authentic. It's just a version that's appropriate for that setting.
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I think it helps if you are not creating too much of a persona
Hmm.
in your conversation because again that goes back to reading the room If
Yeah.
you're so focused on how you come across in the conversation and what they're looking at, I know people who are also so focused on how their hair is combed or those kind of things in a presentation, and they're not reading the room because once you get the attention, you got to keep the attention.
Yeah.
So if you go, here's my attention grabbing statement, AI in manufacturing, and then you fix your glasses and you're like doing this with your hair because you're nervous about your
Mm-hmm.
how you're coming across, then you're gonna lose them again, right? They're gonna go right back
Definitely.
down, heads down to the tablet, heads down to their computer, catching up on emails, doing whatever they can. Oh, my kid just, posted something on Facebook, right? They're gonna go to that
Yeah.
versus having the conversation with you. And I think that sometimes you got to be your authentic self, and a lot of times, to your point, practicing helps. If you're constantly grasping for words, if you're constantly looking back at slides, or if you're not listening
Yeah.
to what people are saying in the room, you're going to lose them. Listening is a big one that I wanted to bring up um, because it's not just hearing the words; it's actively listening, being able to respond back to cues that are given to you by whoever you're talking to. Just like you're nodding your head, right?
Yeah.
If it was something that was off, you probably would do something like this, right?
Yep.
And that's me reading the room. Like I can come
Mm.
back and say, Nina, what did I say right there that made you turn your head, right?
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to what you're saying, right? While you're listening to me, you're also giving me cues. Hey, Ray, I didn't quite agree with that. I don't want to interrupt you, but I will show you with my body language. And that's
Yep.
very, very important, right? What do you think?
No, I 1,000% agree with that one. I want to go back one moment for because it relates to this. When we're talking about authentic self, right? I think it is really important to do an exercise in self-reflection and kind of dissect your personality and your qualities and your styles and maybe decide which version is suitable for which situation so you can pull that persona out in the moment, right? And but it's an exercise in self-reflection. And going back to what you were just saying, again, it's about self-awareness. It all starts with self-awareness before you can be aware of what's happening in the room around you. If you're not self-aware and you don't realize that you're just in your zone, you only care about the next meeting in 30 minutes, or you care about what's on the next slide, then you've already decided that you're not having a conversation, you're reading a script,
Yeah, I agree.
right? And when we're in consulting, it is 99% about the conversation and less about what's on the slides.
Yeah. Sometimes you put yourself, I completely agree with you. Sometimes you put yourself in impossible situations too. So
Yeah,
self-awareness and self-reflection helps for you to be prepared in a conversation. Because sometimes you're going into conversations that are not easy to
yeah,
say. Like think about how many conversations we have right now with leaders who are worried about AI, not only because of their own personal worry, but
yeah,
they're also worried about the response from their team. So you have to be confident about what you're getting wrong. So that has to come from self-awareness. If you go in there and you say, "Hey, AI is never going to take your job," if I just say it like that, people are going to look at you and say, I don't really trust you, right?
mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
really practicing earlier, like you said, and being aware of what you can and cannot say, you may change the narrative, right? You might come in like I know for a fact, the last conversation I had in Boston, one
Yeah,
of the things I brought up is, hey, my dad worked in the steel industry, right? That's a personal touch. I can go on about that a lot. And I said, there is a lot of concern about AI affecting people in that situation.
yeah,
But I also know that for my dad working in the steel mill, there was a lot of job security too, because AI can't reproduce 30 years of what he had been doing,
yeah,
right? So that brought a conversation to the room where they perked up because they said, hey, he knows a bit more about manufacturing, he knows a bit more about steel production. Let's talk to him about this. And then I continued down that pathway again, right? Reading the room. Um, I knew when to pivot back to the focus of AI.
yeah.
but it at least brought them in, right? So that's that self-awareness piece that you're talking about. And the practice piece of it is just, for me, it was the AI piece. It wasn't the I grew up with my dad going to the steel mill. That's something I can tell anybody, right?
Yeah.
But it does help you because that's another part of it, right? Reading the room is knowing when to pivot.
Yeah.
Knowing when to pivot. It's do not stay on your slides if nobody's paying attention to you. You know?
Yeah. And and also know when to stay on a slide, right? If people have
Yeah.
a lot of questions around a certain slide, which most likely going to be a slide that has some type of architecture diagram on it where all the meat is,
Yeah.
spend some extra time there. That's okay. You really got to judge. It's never going to be as you rehearsed,
Yeah.
right? And I think anyone doing presentations or speaking to a group or even at the dinner table with friends, you got to be okay with being uncomfortable for a minute. And once you can master that level of comfort, you can walk into any room and speak with confidence, and everyone in that room is going to be engaged because it's coming from within, right? It's not something that you're reading that you're really not comfortable with. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because when you see disengagement, especially in a meeting surrounding, that's probably what it is they don't really trust that you believe what you're saying.
Yeah. I agree with you. We don't have a Marvel moment right now. Maybe we'll have one here in a moment. But I just think about if we're going back to reading the room, the
Yeah.
self-awareness, think about the difference between Steve Rogers when he was frail, didn't feel like he had the confidence to walk into the room, those kind of things,
Yeah.
versus when he became Captain America, right? That's a star on his chest. He had a purpose. He
Yeah.
walked into the room with more confidence and conversation. And he wasn't using a slide deck, right? He was using himself as a projection of his confidence and his ability to read the room and get them on his side, right?
Yeah.
So again, not a Marvel moment, but still using character recognition and representation to say this is how you can better prepare yourself. And it's
Yeah.
really the self-awareness, right?
Yeah.
Completely agree with what you're saying. I do have one question for you though. We've
Uh-oh.
talked, we've talked a lot about slides and
Mm.
slide decks and blah blah blah. Um, Give me an example, or give me a tip that you may have. Again, about not being prepared with slide deck, whatever. You walk into the room. How are you capturing their attention? How are you keeping their focus?
No, that's such a great question, and it's a tricky one because if you're not familiar with the subject matter to the point where you have that comfort level, like I was mentioning a moment ago, then it is harder. But I do think that, and I share this with all our newcomers, right? As a consultant, our superpower is that we know we can figure stuff out, right? And as soon as we root ourselves in that fact, then there's this confidence that just, pours out of us.
Hmm.
So I do think it's important to understand the context of the meeting, right? And we don't always get that because how many people actually put agendas in the meeting requests?
Hmm.
Let's be very serious.
Hmm.
If it's 50%, I'd be very surprised.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, but understanding that context, I had a call put on my calendar. It was actually in the later half of this last week, and there was no agenda. I had zero context about why I was being pulled into this client-facing call.
Hmm.
And so what I did was I messaged the meeting organizer on Teams. I'm like, hey, I just want to make sure that I'm showing up the right way for this meeting. Can you share some context with me?
Hmm.
And what am I expected to do? Like, why am I being invited to this meeting? They gave me two lines, and then is someone bothering you?
Yeah, I just told him, I'm like, I'm recording a podcast, and my son is like, I'm gonna come in and just talk.
Is it
Excuse me.
Jaden or
It
Jordan?
was Jaden. Excuse me,
Hi,
listeners.
Jaden.
Excuse me, listeners. Keep going. I apologize. Go
But
ahead.
yeah, but the two sentences of context gave me what I needed to show up authentically and with confidence. And those are the two key ingredients for a successful meeting, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Um, you do have to, like you said, prepare in some way,
Yeah.
right? You couldn't walking in unprepared sometimes is harsh. Taking clues from a very, very, basic subject line is very hard. Um, but you want to know the what, the when, maybe even the who, at
Yeah.
least, before you walk into the room, right?
Right.
And that doesn't mean, hey, I need to do something really quickly, get some slides together, blah blah blah. No, you don't have time. A lot of times
Yeah.
you're right before you go into a call, and you did exactly what I would have done too, right? Reach out to the organizer and say, hey, saw this pop up on my calendar. What is this about? I
Yeah.
want to be better prepared so that I can address the room and not
Yeah.
just be in the room,
Yeah.
right? Virtual or
And
not.
sometimes you don't get that, right? Sometimes you can't get in touch with the person. So you got to walk in blind. And that's okay too. In those situations, I sit back for the first 5 minutes and just listen
Yep.
to try to see who's who in the room, what is the content, what is the subject matter, and then I can jump in when it makes sense to jump in. And I'll usually probably start a back channel chat with, our internal people on that call
Yep.
and, chat it up that way during the meeting just to make sure that A, you're not interrupting someone and stepping on someone's toes, and B, if they invited you to be a fly on the wall, that you not being a fly on the wall. I mean, these are the important things to know, right? Sometimes they just want you there to hear for something down the road. Um, I don't know. Context is everything. You can't always get it. So there's so many different tricks and approaches that work. You just got to be in the moment and think on your feet.
Yeah. No, a lot of times when I have nothing, to your point, when I have no details, I just have a meeting on my calendar. But it's been put on my calendar and I can't get anybody information. I have a tendency just to come into the meeting and talk. I know it sounds funny, but
Who you?
yeah, right.
I could not
The
imagine.
but I would talk about something that may be relevant to me at that moment. I know it sounds crazy, but good example. Boys walking into room when you're doing podcasts. I might make a joke about that. I might talk
Yeah,
about the weather and how bad it's been. I might talk about just in general the long work week. That helps to break the ice.
yeah,
So there's always the opportunity to engage with
yeah,
someone by breaking the ice. And the reason why I keep bringing the break the ice, I do see, especially with younger, um, and not younger in name and age, but younger to situation business conversations.
yeah,
Um, you might be like, hey, I'm loaded with exactly what I want to talk about, so I'm going to go in there and talk about these things. Sometimes you break the ice. There's a reason why icebreakers are important. You break
hmm
the ice early, the nerves go out the door because
yeah,
you've talked about something with that person, even if it was, oh, something about Taylor Swift, right? And whether she's getting married on this day or not, which a lot of people are focused on right now. Not even joking. But yeah, you're not focused on Taylor Swift. I am.
I could care less.
Um, but yeah, no, I mean, honestly, that is something that breaks the ice. Even
Yeah.
someone sitting in the room say, hey, I'm not focused on Taylor Swift, but I do miss Whitney Houston. And you're like, oh, okay, let's go down this path, right?
Literally just
So
saw a video that made me miss. I was sitting there crying.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry,
And, and,
tangent.
and and now we're going down that path, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, you just have to talk. But if you come into a room, someone else introduces you as a technical expert, you don't say anything until your slides come up, you don't really leave an impression with that person
Well, no, and that's that human element, right? If you're just going to read from your slides, AI can do that.
better than you can, right?
Right. Right. So it's that human element that's the differentiator and makes that conversation more of a conversation versus a soliloquy or a monologue.
Yep.
It also is what helps to, build that relationship and friendship, right? It's because you going into partner with a firm or with a client, depending on what side of that fence you're on, that's a partnership.
Mhm.
I'm not going into partnership with someone I don't trust.
Yeah, no, I agree. You got to build that trust. You got to
Yeah,
maintain it through the conversation and build it, right? So I will say one thing about us putting ourselves in these free-flowing, freestyling conversations. They can go a bit long-winded and we can keep going down the rabbit holes. But I do want to kind of bring us back to what we have talked about so far,
yeah,
which is reading the room, why it's important that before you engage in reading the room, you are self-aware, you start doing some self-reflection. And that'll lead you to some additional need to practice that you identify because you're aware of where your gaps are, right?
yeah.
We also talked about icebreakers and how conversation style and what you're thinking about. Someone else in the room may be thinking that, right? So start off with a hey, how you doing versus on this page you can see this and this, right?
Oh my God,
You
yeah.
know. So I do think that's important. What else did I miss that we talked
We
about?
talked about authentic selves,
Authentic selves.
and you do yourself a disservice by thinking you only have one version of yourself.
Mhm.
Because
Agreed.
none of us do. We are multifaceted human beings. We're multidimensional. We don't have just one version of ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah, I forgot all about that. And that's you bringing your authentic self, saying, "Hey, I know exactly what he forgot." And I appreciate that. Yeah, I think those were the major things that we hit on. And again, I wanted this to be more free flowing. So I think we
Yeah,
accomplished that today. I do want to hear feedback, obviously, because the reason we're going down this route is because we got some good feedback on the last series of videos. So please, if you get the chance to see this, listen to this, please provide feedback. We love the feedback. You can put it at hashtag Culture and Code Podcast, and then we'll adjust. We love the feedback. Anything you want to
and
say, Nina?
yeah, just let's use hashtag feedback also because we said feedback so many times in the last minute. So why not?
Yeah, that actually help us pay attention more to
Yeah.
it, right? The hashtag, the feedback. So yeah, I like that idea as well. So yeah, if there's nothing else, then let's go ahead and sign off on this one until our next time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being an active listener and participant in our journey. All
Yes.
right.
Take care, everyone.